enjoyed taking photographs of it and sending it to my gourmet friends, and they went, "Oh, that's disgusting." And I was like, "You have no idea. That was a wonderful meal. It was a meal for my heart." And it didn't throw my stomach, so I have no complaints about it. There's many delicious things I've seen in my life that are no good for my health. And my tongue is an assassin, and it will happily go, "Oh, this is really nice," and throw it down my stomach, and it'll go, "Yuck, this is no good for us." But silkworms were okay, so they get a thumbs up from me. Thank you. So, appreciative joy, is a wonderful, wonderful quality. It is one of these 4 Brahma Viharas. It is one of the 4 perspectives of a God, of a Brahma. This is an amazing quality of mind to cultivate and grow, and you can grow it. It can be grown. Skillfulness can be, is the proximate cause for more skillfulness. Appreciative joy grows on appreciative joy. So if you start like a yogurt, you start with yesterday's old yogurt, and you have the fresh milk and boil it, and you add it in when it hits the right temperature and it cools down, you'll get new fresh yogurt. The same way with appreciative joy. So appreciative joy is different to chaganusati, which is what we call reflection on generosity. What elevates for me appreciative joy is that it's this focus on skill. You see, generosity can require us to give or to receive, whereas there's something very elevated in skillfulness and in mastery and talent. Sometimes when we watch the Olympics or, some great sporting feat where somebody is incredibly talented and they can do something that almost nobody else in the world can do. It's really inspiring at times. It can be very uplifting. Or somebody is particularly talented in your area of work or education or wherever, and they can just do something so easily, so well, so just, it can be breathtaking, the talents of people. And you know what? We can just sit back and enjoy it. We can appreciate what they're doing and enjoy it. If we're skillful, we can sort of take it into our heart, just like we were doing earlier on, and grow it, and be inspired, and be touched, and have our bar raised, and be our better selves by what they have to bring into this world. And some things we don't ever have to do, We can just coexist in the world, and in a world where different people have different talents, and, the sum of the individual parts is somehow greater than just the individuals alone. Like they say in Japan, one man does one man's work, 2 men do 2 men's work, 2 men together do 11 men's work, right? So we can really appreciate the gifts of all the different people. And this ability to not be envious is a great quality in the world, because it's the antidote to scarcity. And it's quite remarkable, like how rich and abundant, different people are in different parts of the world. As Dennis mentioned, I've spent a lot of time in Burma and Sri Lanka and Malaysia and Singapore and lots of places, but sometimes I don't come down to a place where it's just really rich and go, rotten rich people or something like that. I go, wow, that's amazing, that's fantastic, and I get excited about all the wonderful things that this group of people have as talent. Like, I think when I visited Ireland in 2016, and I hadn't seen a rugby game in about 20 years. I think, yeah, maybe more than 20 years, 25 years. And the game had changed so much in 25 years, and the talent of the players and the whole way the game was running and everything. It was just like, it was a different game almost to me. I remember being really shocked at the talent and the skill and how much it had changed. But we can look at it and really enjoy it, or we can kind of go, "Oh my God, I'm so pathetic." Exact same thing happening right in front of us. So the wonderful thing I find in Buddhism is that sometimes the Buddha is pointing us towards tools for different situations. You know, what do I do with the exact same event? I'm watching a rugby game, or I'm watching a game, and I'm looking at it going, God, that's wonderful, or God, I'm so pathetic. It's amazing how nutty the mind is. But, you know, we can train it. We can train it. And I really feel why mudita is so important is because it opens us up to teaching and learning. You know, if I look at somebody else who's really, really talented at something, and I view either A, I'm pathetic, or B, you know, that person's just lucky, fill in the blanks, all the reasons why they're better than me and somehow they don't deserve to be. You know, and it really shuts down my ability to learn from somebody who's actually better at doing something than I am. And particularly if I want to know, I can kind of go, I'm not going to, you know, that person's probably stuck up. I'm not going to ask them or talk to them, or, you know, they're above me or they're beneath me or whatever it is, and we can't communicate and we can't talk. And there's this hostility and there's this edge. But especially within my own heart, I can't even talk to my own heart and communicate it and be inspired and be uplifted to do the hard work of maybe undoing my own unskillfulness and learning how to do things skillfully. You know, this heart and mind of mine is not a blank slate, and sometimes I have to rewrite. I have to unpick all of my daft, silly things and go and learn from somebody who is better than me. You know, that's so hard. It's so hard. But mudita really helps me to do this. It softens my heart. It makes it malleable. It makes it easy. It makes it light around people who are better than me, you know, who are masters of things than I am. And I can acquire their skills, and I can just be grateful. But in this whole spiritual path, we need things to elevate ourselves. We don't need to invent the wheel. The Buddha has started the wheel rolling. He was this great master. He was this great master. We don't need to reinvent Buddhism. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's just take what has been done and move on and elevate ourselves. And that's a wonderful thing. And these days we have wonderful tools, you know, internet and television and radio and phones and all kinds of things where we're not in the dark ages. We're not cut off from ways and means of elevating ourselves. You know, we fix and repair and maintain a lot of things out in the monastery. Sometimes people donate second-hand things to us, and we will fix and repair them and get them back into use. Like we were recently fixing one of the cars that had gotten crashed. And the donor who had given us the car was a little disappointed when it got crashed because it got totaled. You know, it was written off. It would have cost us over about 8,000 to redo the bodywork on the car. You know, but between a few of us, we went down to the scrapyard and we got the different parts and we cut off the mangled parts and we put them back together, and we, with the help of somebody else, we came in and we painted it and puttied it and worked it and polished it and painted it. And I challenge you to spot the car that was written off. It's back on the road. It's running all over the city. It cost us $1,000. We did it as a team. And we went to YouTube and we downloaded little clips on how to do this and how to do that. I'm very thankful to some of the YouTubers out there who share their knowledge and expertise. And you know, I didn't shout at the YouTube, that's not how you do it, that's stupid. Oh yeah, okay. Just do it, you know. And at the end, you know, we did a really quite a good job. I'm not trying to boast about it because there was a lot of us going, because eternally, you know, when we fix things and look at things, we see all the faults. And, you know, the guy who welded it wanted to cut it up again and re-weld it and do all sorts of things to it. And we had to say, stop, now we're going to go and do the putting and the painting. You know, it was good enough. So this ability to, not be our own worst enemies, not kick an own goal in our own net, is really important for us to move forward in any path in life, in any career, in any job, in any education, and in the holy life. You see, as monks, I can't pull out my diploma or certificate or tools or equipment or anything and say, oh, this person really is knowing what he's doing. I have to all the time be able to say to myself that this is good enough and I value what I'm doing, that I appreciate what I'm doing, and I see the skillfulness in what I'm developing. Because otherwise I'll just feel eternally not good enough. I'm not building houses or building cars, or, I might do a little bit of repair on the side, but, for me it's an opportunity to do dana, to do an act of generosity. And the donor was very happy to see that not only had we maintained their car, but we had recovered it from a crash and it was back on the road, and they felt very happy. These guys are really, they really tried their best to take care of this stuff. They were uplifted and they were looking at the skill of it. They said it was even better than that when they'd given it, it had more bumps than after the crash, which I thought was really nice. I hadn't thought about that, but it was true actually. So I can inspire myself in different ways. I didn't become a monk to spray paint a car. But I've learned over time how not to be my own self-defeating self, and to give myself a break and give things a go and be patient with myself. Maybe I could do some things, and that's inspiring. That is inspiration at work, And so mudita plays this incredibly important role of not being, kicking the own goal of envy and jealousy and being, feeling pathetic and finding every reason to trash myself. So it's very, very powerful. But it's not a Pollyanny, it's not like a magic bullet. It has to work in symphony with the other Brahma Viharas, like loving kindness and compassion and equanimity. So sometimes when I was training, we would have anagarikas, people come to our monastery, and they weren't very skillful. Sometimes it's quite amazing how, unskilled people can be in certain areas. Like maybe they've never cooked anything before. Or maybe they've never driven a car with a stick shift. They're only used to automatics. Or they've never reversed a car with a trailer, and you're trying to train them in. So sometimes it's not okay to just jump in and say, oh no, you're great, you're doing a great job, and good, well done, this is going really well. When they don't feel that way, they feel really vulnerable and really pathetic. So sometimes I find it better to connect with compassion and say, okay, I feel your suffering, I get it. I really acknowledge it. So I find it very helpful to sometimes begin with compassion, or sometimes I will see that they're doing a great job, but they're seeing that it's not good enough. And I might try out a little compassion, a little bit of this mudita, and say, yeah, no, great, you're doing a really, I think I can see it working, I can see it coming together. And they're like, no, I'm not. So I connect with compassion. I switch to compassion. Or I try to find some loving, kind aspect to them. Especially when somebody's really having a struggle. They're really having a difficult time. If one has been doing something for a long time, it can be quite intimidating to somebody else. You're a master chef or a master mechanic or a master, or it seems that way to them. And they don't see all the dots, all the little steps that you took along your path to where you have gotten to a stage of mastery. But to have that humility to come back and say, okay, be willing to relearn and go through that path with somebody else. It can really open up the different masteries to that same thing. Like when I became a bhikkhu, we have a lot of rules around like harming plants or cutting down trees or, you know, various things that we can't do. And we need the help and assistance of people who are not ordained to do things like digging and things like that. And sometimes I've had to show people how to use a shovel or a pick or something like that. And I grew up on a farm, so those were things I learned as a child. And but I had to decide and make up in my own mind that, no, actually, you know, now I have to really become a master of it, because I now have to achieve the same goals that would be so easy for me to just pick up and do it myself. But now I have to exercise that mastery through others or with the help of others in concert, this inter-being and inter-are. And boy, have I learned a lot. I'm still a student of those same things that were child's play to me once as a child. And I'm also deeply grateful to the people who took the time when I was a kid to teach me things. And I take great pleasure in the skill of others, that they've put the time and effort into their skill. So this mudita is a wonderful, wonderful teaching to put into practice and into life. Very, very helpful. It's what we call a Brahma vihara. It's almost infinite in quality. You know, so the near enemy, as it were, of this sympathetic joy is envy and greed, envy and jealousy, this comparative nature. So if I can get over my envy and jealousy and move into this space, what I call the near enemy, if I can get over that threshold, I can start to move into mudita. But the far enemy is what they call, where it breaks down into just being like a party or a festive kind of state of mind, where it's like, whoa, it's great, woo, great, woo, this kind of state of mind. This is the opposite, the breakdown in mudita on the other side. So mudita lies between these extremes of, on the one hand, being envious and jealous, and on the other hand, being frivolous and flittering away this kind of very, very powerful feeling of appreciation. So if we can do that, if we can hold it between those constraints, we can develop it into an infinite quality where it has this great depth and power. And also I find it's quite useful. It depends on one's interest and skill. Like I like mudita, so I develop it and I can switch to the other mental states. So supposing I meet somebody, supposing that somebody is a gangster, a thug, all right? And I meet gangsters and thugs a lot. I teach in the prisons, and it's full of them. I meet liars and murderers, and I meet frauds. I meet, you know, real bruisers. I meet lots of people who are not pleasant, but I usually can find something that they're bloody good at, even if it is beating up people, you know? And I can sort of say, okay, I kind of appreciate how you've developed this skill. I mean, I've known some who weren't too good. There was a, shall we call him loosely a friend of mine who was a bank robber, and he got put in prison for bank robbing, and then he got out again, and he couldn't find a weapon to go back to bank robbing, so he got a vacuum cleaner that looked like a weapon, and he made it up to look like a weapon, and he went back to robbing a bank, and he was caught. But because the bank tellers thought it was a heavy armed weapon, he still went back to jail for a heavy armed crime. He has other good qualities to him, though. He's a nice person in other ways. So I can find this sort of quality to connect with and say, okay, you know, these are areas of your talent. Maybe we can try to imagine how you could redeploy your talent in other ways that won't get you put back in jail. Maybe he should have gone into film special effects. I don't know. He was certainly creative, but, you know, it's one of these tools, and I find it really useful, especially in teaching others and in teaching myself. It's a very, very useful tool to opening the heart, to the difficulties of learning something new, the difficulties of unlearning how we do things, opening ourselves up to those with mastery, not necessarily jumping in, I'm an expert and I need a second opinion and all this other stuff. And just trusting myself and learning to trust my mind, you know. So this samadhi is very useful. This calming of the mind is very useful. This technique that we were doing tonight is a calming technique. I hope you felt calm. It can also be quite energizing. So when we feel depleted, it can also help us to revitalize ourselves. It's nourishing. And it can be very, very helpful on any path of endeavor. Rather than just grinning and bearing and sucking it up, we do it joyfully, with energy, with gusto, with enthusiasm, with interest, with delight, with creativity. You see, so this Brahma Vihara is serious. It achieves many, many goals, or is the foundation to many, many goals in our lives. So this is why it has such an elevated position in the hierarchy of Buddhist meditations. It's a profound teaching. And the more you practice it, the more it reveals itself. It can be applied anywhere, anytime. It's priceless. It's really, really priceless. So I hope you can come to appreciate appreciative joy. I hope you can find a place for it in your heart and grow it. You've maybe heard the seed of a teaching tonight, and it's up to you to master it and cultivate it in all sorts of ways and see where it can bring you. It might even bring you to the realm of the gods itself. So powerful is this meditation. You know, so if you're sitting on a bus or on an airport or waiting for something somewhere, maybe this is something very useful. You know, those airline pilots are pretty skillful. Those airport controllers are pretty skillful. When we're banging on about delays and stuff like this and that, know that we're in scarcity and we can maybe put our mind somewhere else. When we're in the hospitals getting annoyed about the long queues, those nurses and those doctors are not doing it on purpose to mess you up. They're pretty skillful, they're pretty talented, and they're worth paying attention to. Those mechanics are pretty skillful. Just fill in the blanks. Those teachers are pretty skillful. You know, those cooks in the restaurants are pretty skillful. They know something that you don't. And it's a really, really helpful way of looking at the world. Maybe somebody knows something that I don't. And this mudita is a wonderful way to open my heart to that possibility and be that better self. Maybe they have the antidote to something that I'm suffering from. Maybe if you have any questions, if anybody would like to talk about their experience of what they've experienced tonight. A question is something with a question at the end, not a statement, if you don't mind. If there's any on the internet as well, that would be very helpful.
Hello. I just wanted to ask you a further question about what you were talking about tonight, about when someone who's, say you've got knowledge about something, but someone explains something to you that you already know about, like how do you respond, like with love and kindness instead of arrogance? And yeah, do you understand what I mean?
So let me see if I have heard what you're saying. Is somebody you already understand what they're saying to you and you feel put down by that?
Oh, no. I just, like, say you have a lot of knowledge about a topic, but someone explains it to you like you have no knowledge. But instead of being arrogant and saying, like, instead of putting them down, like responding with kindness, because realizing that you might be able to learn something from them, like, that's a difficult thing. Like, how do you go about that?
Sometimes we can reflect, like, for instance, we can reflect, like I've had the experience of where I listen to other people who teach meditation, for instance. Like, I listen to, some Dhamma talks or podcasts and things like that. And I know from what they're saying, maybe I know as much as they do, or maybe sometimes I know more than they do, maybe, or I think I have more experience than they have, But sometimes I'm listening out for just simply, I'm saying to myself, yeah, that's true, yeah, it's actually quite true what that person is saying. I'm not trying to criticize them. I'm just using it to validate my own experience. And, sometimes I can hear people like who will say they don't know as much as I do. Not everybody is as interested in meditation as I am. And sometimes they say things well. Like, for a long time I stayed away from psychology. I spent a lot of time in Asia, like, kind of, and but I came back and I've found that sometimes there's words in psychology that are quite useful, that I can use to convey a kind of an idea. So, like, I know for sure that the person who wrote those words isn't a very good meditator. I really know that they're not, because I know we had the same teacher, and I know what the translator told me about what their meditation was, and they told me that their wife was better at meditation as well, and this is a kind of New York Times bestseller book, but I really appreciate their talent with words. They're very, very helpful. So I'm looking for what I can get out of something. Like, maybe it's just sometimes I have to drop back and shift my thing that I'm expecting out of this exchange, So I'm always very happy to go to attend other meditations. Like, again, I was teaching in Ireland, like, in Perth you take it for granted. You get really good stuff here, and it's just, yeah, that's normal. Like, in Ireland, there isn't that privilege. And I was actually going to an event one night, and I actually ended up sitting in the audience with somebody who had really not a lot of experience. And I was really happy that the person in the end said to me, afterwards he came over and said, could he have done anything any better? He did. And he was I learned from his mistakes. And I don't mean that in a negative way, the mind naturally doesn't like mistakes. It likes to throw them out and condemn it and all these other things. But when you can look at something and say, I'm learning from somebody doing what I know not to be that useful, and I can look at that experiment, the experiment I don't want to do. And I've learned a lot in my life, because a lot of my teachers are not perfect beings. They're quite flawed humans. And actually, a lot of my greatest teachers were really flawed. They were really, really flawed. And if I keep looking for the perfect, ultimate, wonderful, kind, sympathetic, thoughtful, insightful guru, I'm stuffed. Maybe it's just my bad karma or something. I'm completely stuffed. So often I'm learning how not to do certain things, but I'm not doing it with disdain or something like that. I'm doing it with a lot of compassion and go, yes, thank you for doing that experiment that I don't want to do. Is that okay? Yeah. I'll just have a quick read here, if you don't mind. Give somebody on the internet. From North Wales. Actually, one of the greetings earlier on was in Welsh. You may not have known that fact, but it was. One of our monks is Welsh speaking. When we reach the top of our reincarnation journey, do we go back down again slowly into poverty and illness? In Buddhism, we have a concept of rebirth, and so we go from lifetime to a lifetime, and we move along the arc of our movement through samsara, through these rebirths, is propelled by what we call karma. So karma is just simply action, what we do, and the main aspect of driving karma is our intention to do things. And if we do wholesome deeds in body, speech, and mind, if we do generous acts, if we do moral acts, if we cultivate our mind, bhavana, or meditate like we're doing tonight, we start cultivating ourselves and elevating ourselves within the rounds of rebirth and within the rounds of what you might call divinity, a divine scale from hell to heaven, shall we say. But the ultimate goal of Buddhist practices is to achieve what we call nibbana. And nibbana means, like later on tonight, they will switch out the lights. We will off the light. In other words, the light goes out. And nibbana means to extinguish, just as you would extinguish a candle. So if we have an oil lamp, the flame is burning because there was oil and there was a wick and there was the ignition, the heat source that ignited the candle. So that candle burns because of oxygen in the air, because of the heated oil in the wick. All of these causes and conditions are required for that lamp to burn. And for that lamp to be extinguished, all we have to do is remove the oil, remove the wick, remove the oxygen, or put cold water on it or something, take the heat out of it. So any of those conditions, if they are removed, any one of them will extinguish the flame. So in Buddhism, we are trying to extinguish the flame of our rebirth. And the way we're going to do this is by extinguishing the desire, the intention to be reborn again. And without that intention to be reborn, we don't ignite the next lifetime. So if we are fully enlightened, we don't go back to other states. We are fully extinguished. It's like saying the extinguished lamp, does it go back to poverty and illness again? No, it's gone out. It's gone fully out and it's extinguished. It's gone. So, and from Lithuania, we have a question: when it comes to learning skills and practice, how to deal with unsuccessful attempts and negative feelings which come from failure? Well, I would remind this person of Edison, Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb. Back to my light bulb thing again. His assistant was getting pretty fed up. He had many unsuccessful attempts and deep negative feelings, and he went to the boss and he said, "We've done this 1,000 times. Can we give up this search for a bulb, a light bulb?" And Edison said, "We know 1,000 ways it doesn't work." Okay? So this comes back to what I'd mentioned earlier on in the room about learning from our failures, learning from the gurus from hell, the ajahns from hell, as Ajahn Brahm calls it, learning from these things. Yes, it's difficult, but by golly, they're all around us. And if we view each and every one of those things as a learning opportunity, and it is a shift in our perspective, it is a shift in our attitude, but this holy path of the Eightfold Noble Path starts with right view and right attitude. Samma ditthi, samma sankappa. So with this skillful attitude, when I mean right attitude and right view, I mean skillful attitudes and skillful views. And that's why coming here tonight is skillful. Maybe you're learning points that will be very helpful to you. Because if we expect everything to be perfect, sometimes it's really hard to learn from perfect. You know, you can. In fact, there was one company I knew that their motto, they wanted a motto that said, you know, this is perfect. But their actual motto is almost perfect. Because they realized when they said to their engineering and design teams, perfect, we want something perfect, that they would create something and they would say present it to the management and say, this is perfect. And then it was unfixable after that. Nobody, you know, if the customer complained, they were upset. Why? Because it was perfect and it was the customer's problem. But when the management told them, no, it's almost perfect, they would go, okay, yeah, maybe we can improve this. Yeah, maybe this customer is actually pointing out their failure. A friend of mine built a house, had a house built in Sri Lanka. He lived in London. The house has been built in Sri Lanka. He was a white Irish guy, and he built this house. And every Sri Lankan I knew said that this cannot be done. A white guy is going to get totally ripped off, it'll never happen, and it's not going to happen. He did it flawlessly, effortlessly, did it really, really well. And it was built really, really well. And then he rented out this house to a CEO of a certain Scandinavian country, and that person was a proverbial nightmare. Every single thing that was flawed or wrong or whatever. And it was almost like a coffee table, you know, kind of photo shooty type house. It was really very nice. And he had the constant idea in his head that this guy is debugging the house for me. You know, we built it well, it was a good job, but this guy is an expert debugger. He is finding every flaw in the house, and he just agreed, and he would fix. And the house was well built in the end. You know, I really like that iteration, you know, learning release the beta, you know, and just get on with things. You know, the job we did on the car wasn't perfect. I know it's false, you know. We didn't perfectly match the paint, so on. But, you know, I really find mudita very helpful, so I hope this answers that question. Maybe we could take another one from the room. Yeah. Yes? Okay.
Thank you so much for tonight. I'm from Lithuania, by the way, and okay. I'd just like to share how we came out as immigrants with nothing and how much...
Can you just ask a question, if you don't mind?
I'd like to share this because this is very relevant to your talk tonight. But anyway...
I think people would like to have a question asked and answered, if you don't mind. I'd love to hear your story afterwards.
No, it's not a story. It's something very relevant. Okay. That the people, the Lithuanian people here are feeling very sorry for the Lithuanian people in Lithuania. And I went back, and the people there celebrate life. They might be poor, you know, the country is very poor, their roads are terrible, their cars are terrible, their homes are very poor. However, those people really celebrate their life. In summer they have festivals everywhere. And in winter everything closes and they have to literally hibernate. However, it taught me how much poor people can actually enjoy their lives. Whereas here, the Lithuanian people worked very hard, and I felt that they don't enjoy their lives as much as the poor relatives in Lithuania that really love their land, love their lives, even though it's very poor. So thank you for tonight.
Sorry, does anybody have a question? Because, yeah. Maybe, Peter, if you don't mind, a quick question, yeah.
So how do we get started? I mean, like, mudita, I mean...
How to get started at
it?
Yeah. Like we did tonight, you know, usually like by recollecting where we've experienced something skillful in our life. You know, we've all benefited incredibly in our lives from the skill and the talent of others. So just think about something that was skillful and talented in one's life. I call them having a box of memories, a beautiful treasure box of memories, and I store them away. I store them away in my heart. I'll tell you a story of a beautiful example, I think, of incredible skill. A friend of mine recently, he's an older gentleman, and he came and he told me that when his daughter had children, she had twins. He retired from working. His daughter was quite old when she had children. It was very they had a lot of difficulty to have a child, and then these children came late. They actually came as twins, and he retired at 75 from working. He loved work, and he was very, very good at it, and he dedicated his retirement to raising these grandchildren, and so he speaks a few different languages, and he speaks to his grandchildren mostly in different types of Chinese. And he grows a beautiful garden around their house, and he grows a lot of vegetables and fruit, and he lives here in Perth, so he grows a lot of Asian fruit and vegetables, and I know him very well because we were both gardeners, and I used to share a lot of compost from the monastery with him. And recently his son-in-law cut down 3 or 4 of his fruit trees, beautiful fruit trees that he had growing at the side of the house that provided shade in the summertime. Now, it would be nice in a 40-degree day like today. And he cut them down, and he just left them there. And he came to the monastery, and he was telling me about it, and I had just visited him about 1 month ago, and he'd been showing me the exact trees even, and I'd been looking at his other plants. And of course he'd been teaching the children, who are now about 11 years old, about just how to grow plants and look after and where food comes from. And so we were talking about patience, and I said to him, "Did you get annoyed with your son-in-law, who lives in the same house with, obviously?" And he said, "No, not really." He said, "It wasn't important. It wasn't important. Some things are more important." And so I said to him, maybe, just as a suggestion, maybe you could get the little twins out to help you to mulch those trees. And as you mulch those trees, tell them about why you're mulching the trees, and what's important in life and what's not important in life. So is that something beautiful that you could remember as a way of starting contemplation on mudita, on skillful practice? Thank you. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you for your talk. I just wanted to clarify what I thought I heard you say about the scale of mudita. So how on one side it was jealousy and envy, and then the other one was being frivolous,
right,
and mudita. So I didn't quite understand that sense of, could you explain a bit more about the frivolousness?
If every time, we feel really good about things, like I'm looking at the blinking lights outside, if every time, we just want to go and party all the time, like this is called hedonic pleasure, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And sex, drugs, and rock and roll it's nice, it's entertaining, it's fun, but you get fed up of it. It has what they call hedonic treadmill. It just doesn't sustain. So 1 slice of cake is delicious, 10 slices of cake is disgusting, right? Exact same thing. We get sick of it. The same, like we go on a roller coaster, once is good, 25 times in a row, it's not that thrilling anymore. So this is the problem with this kind of pleasure of this breakdown into, it's fun, it's a party, it's great, but really, So there's higher kinds of fun, shall we say. So the next higher kind of fun is flow. So flow is like when you're meditating and you get into like a sustained attention and awareness on the breath, and you're breathing in and out and you're getting nice and calm for long periods of time. So your friends may say to you, what kind of weirdo are you? You're coming here for the New Year's Eve party. You're not going to be boozing. You're not going to be, it's, you know, how much fun can that be? It's in great fun. I assure you, it's absolutely great fun evening. I've done this party lots of times in the past, right? It's really fun. And as mentioned about the Lithuanian, you know, people can have a lot of fun just playing together, and simple festivities and things like that. You don't need all of the lights and the bling to kind of have it. And it's just that sense of flow, you know, playing a game of chess, or just mastery, you know, working out in a man's shed or something like that, just mastery. And then there's an even higher level of happiness, and that's the happiness of meaning, what they call eudaimonia. So, you know, like, you know, Nelson Mandela, you know, spent 27 years in prison, right? You know, that was hard work. He was in Robben Island. It was, you know, breaking rock in a quarry. It wasn't fun. It wasn't even something that you want mastery in. You're a master rock breaker in a prison. You know, I know career prisoners. It's not fun. It's not fun. So, you know, he did it, I think, with a lot of meaning, right? The long path to freedom, right? So, you know, okay, you know, if it breaks down into this kind of sense of fun, okay, but know that there's much, much more meaningful things. And if you can have this sympathetic joy, it's a profound connection with the world, with the humans around you. You know, whereas if you have this sort of hedonic connection with other people, you know, it's just the good time Charlies. They're not the foul weather friends. They don't have your back. You know, my friends are people who have my back. That's my friend, right? Not people whom I just, you know, had great times with. As a monk, I don't see a lot of the people I used to go clubbing with anymore, you know? Does that explain it to you, maybe? You're welcome. Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. It's 9 o'clock. Maybe we can end. If you have any further questions, I'll be around later for a while. So maybe we can just call it an evening. Okay. We normally do the... Sorry, I haven't been here in a while. We normally do the bowing. That's what I thought. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagavan Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivade Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammaloka Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangha